So the starting point for the Sphinx must have been a huge rock sticking out of the surface of the Giza Plateau. Workers cut a trench around it, quarrying the stone out from the ditch in huge blocks. They hauled off those blocks to build the nearby Sphinx temple. Then, sculptors carved the giant rock remaining in the center into the shape of the Sphinx.
The Sphinx was carved right out of the natural mother rock of the Giza Plateau.
But knowing that it's carved right out of the earth is only half the mystery. How did they actually do it? Sculpting a human-headed lion out of 20,000 tons of limestone is no small matter.
So, Fatih, we need to get two types of rock, two types of hara.
To investigate the challenges faced by the ancient sculptors, archaeologist Richard Redding and Fahi Mohammed, a stonemason who has worked at Giza since he was a boy, team up to carve a mini Sphinx.
So let's see what we can find here.
They search for limestone that's as hard as the layer in the Sphinx's head.
I think we've got it right here. What you can see is this one's nice and strong. It's like the head.
Okay. Hop. Yalla.
They find just the right stone in a nearby quarry. It's extremely heavy and hard, maybe too hard.
Mr. Richard, my tools will be ruined.
Fahi is worried that the hard rock will ruin his tools.
My tools made of steel, but the rock bent it. The rock is very hard.
Okay.
If Fahi is having such a difficult time using modern steel tools, how did the ancient Egyptians carve the Sphinx with more primitive tools? The answer will come half a world away.
Hey, Rick. New England in the fall's a far cry from Egypt in the desert.
Mark Lehner has come to consult with Rick Brown, a specialist in ancient tools. Based on actual copper tools found at Giza and tomb scenes depicting stonecutters at work, Brown gathers everything an ancient Egyptian would have had to carve the Great Sphinx.
Rick and I got together and looked at all the evidence we have from the tomb scenes, from actual tools that we found, and based on all this evidence, Rick has put together the rudiments of the toolkit that the Sphinx builders would have used.
So we have copper chisels, two-handed pounder, and there's the hammer.
To really understand the challenge of using these tools for carving, Lehner and Brown begin by making them, starting with the copper chisel.
Even a little more right now, just so we can get some good heat.
Working long before the invention of harder bronze or iron, the Sphinx sculptors had to make do with softer copper.
This is what they would have done in Egypt. They take a blank of copper, we're going to heat it, and we're going to fashion this into a chisel.
The pure copper starts out a metal gray, and as it heats, it turns red.
So you want that piece of copper red hot?
Yeah, when I get color in the copper. Okay, we're ready. Okay, it looks good.
Ooh, we got it red hot.
It looks good. Now I'm going to just hand this off to you.
The heat softens the copper into a more pliable material that can be pounded into shape.
You know, this process is so basic. What they were doing was they were using a hard material to fashion and shape a soft material.
But as the soft copper cools, it hardens again.
I want to go back in the fire because I can actually break the metal. Okay. So let's go back in the fire.
Already, these ancient tools reveal there's more to making the Sphinx than just carving.
Charcoal was a crucial ingredient of making these monuments at Giza. So that they must have been trucking wood in and feeding these fires all day long, all year round, just to make the tools to make the monument.
Now I want to have it flattened down this time.
The heating pounding cycle is repeated over and over.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Let's go.
Until the shape is just right.
I want it to be straight along the axis like this, because if it's already turning a little bit, that means it's not going to last as long.
That's right.
So just like...
They must have amassed more copper for building the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx than just about any place in the world in the 3rd millennium BC. I mean, it just must have been a huge cost in copper.
But the copper chisel was the high-tech finishing tool of the Old Kingdom. The real grunt work was achieved with something much more basic: stone hammers.
Mark, if you look at this photograph of the Tomb of Tea, there is a stone carver using a tool like this. And this is what I discovered. You have to really look carefully at these drawings because they give a lot of information.
Based on this 4,000-year-old tomb painting, Brown and Lehner make their own hammers today.
I want to use a harder stone against a softer stone.
So you're using a stone to make a stone tool. There's a whole lot of pounding going on.
The grooves and lashing transform a simple stone into an effective hammer.
It's not easy, is it? They probably did it as quickly as tying a shoe.
Okay, let's try that.
The thing about this is, I think the critical thing is it gives you a lot more action.
He can work like that for many, many hours and not wear himself out.
Now, Lehner and Brown will put the tools to the test. They're going to attempt to carve the feature of the Sphinx that's most conspicuously absent: the nose. There are stories that it was shot off by Napoleon's soldiers using it for target practice. But they turn out to be false.
About 300 years before Napoleon, an Arab historian already mentions that the nose is gone. I think there's good evidence that it was snapped off intentionally. There's a deep wedge down the bridge, and there's another groove in the Sphinx's left nostril. I think somebody might have pounded these metal wedges and then it snapped it off to the south.
While the original nose is lost forever, today Lehner and Brown, with just stone hammers and copper chisels, will carve a new one.
Let's go to work.
I'm just using graphite.
Out of this 6-foot chunk of hard limestone, they will attempt to carve a nose nearly half the size of the original.
We're gonna make this nose starting with tools like this. Was that my idea?
Yes.
They dive in and quickly discovered that hard stone is much more effective than the soft copper in these early stages.
That's the evidence that the pounder, even though it seems primitive, is actually quite effective.
But even with reinforcements,